The term startup became vogue during the tech boom of the late 90s and stuck around after the bubble burst. In the new millennium, we've seen the term grow beyond Silicon Valley. Startups about everything imaginable, from food to fashion, have now become ubiquitous. And for some in South Florida, startup is the new black.
My name is Tatiana Torres, and I'm the founder of Furor Moda.
Neil Ramsay, Finance and Operations Management.
I'm Brad Liff, and I'm the CEO and founder of Fitting Room Social.
My name is Pilar Tarrau, and my company is PT Media.
Hi, my name is Mitali Saxena, and I'm the founder of a fashion app called Fashom.
My name is Anca Bettencourt. I'm founder and designer at Penny's Dreamology.
Larisa Jevtovic, and I am the founder of Shopping Minute.
I'm Scandar, and I'm CEO of Vividly.
I'm Sabrina Scandar, and I'm one of the co-founders of Vividly.
My name is Cristina Llanos, and I'm the owner of Lusso.
Ideas are generated from solving problems. You're sitting at a desk and you're working and you want to go outside. And you have your papers and the wind is blowing. So your papers start flying away. Almost naturally, you realize that you want to put the papers back on the desk and put something heavier or heavy enough to stop the wind from blowing the papers away. You get to this point where you think, wow, wouldn't it be nice if this object were decorative or had some other meaning? And at that point, you sort of sit back and you start to review that in your head, and we often call that an aha moment.
Well, I had been kind of trying out different things. Like I said, I was learning to sew. And then I came across this website called Quirky, which was crowdsourced product design. And I thought it was the coolest thing. And I actually, that same day, kind of drew some sketches and came up with ideas for Quirky. And I thought, how great, this makes me feel so good that I can make something and be part of this community of makers. And very quickly kind of thought, well, I want to create something that allows people to feel this way too. And so kind of called up my sister and said, what if we did this with clothing?
We really just like that idea of allowing people to contribute to the clothing that they were wearing. And then Vividly came about because we were in the middle of Soul Love and trying to understand what wasn't working. We were walking around Wynwood every day, and we just found so much inspiration here with all of the artwork, and we wanted to figure out a way to kind of bring that into our business.
Lost in Lusso started because I've always loved jewelry. So I've always ripped stuff apart and made it on my own because I don't like to have jewelry that other people have. My friends started asking me, where did you get that necklace, or where did you get that, or can you make me something? And that's kind of how it started from there. It was a hobby that turned into a business.
It came when I was getting married, and I wanted to see what people were wearing in India for their wedding, and I couldn't find anything but designer clothes that costed over $15,000. Then we were going on a honeymoon to Europe. I wanted to see what regular people again, street style, what was it in Europe, countries like France and Italy, and I couldn't find. I could just find bloggers or high-end designers, and I thought that we need a platform where everyday style can be showcased.
I love art, and my first inspiration was Basquiat. That's the reason, my logo. Because Basquiat have a ball and Colorado style, Western style. My family ranch in Venezuela and a lot of cowboy dress. I remember when I had a crush with a cowboy and I never stopped thinking about him. And now I realize, I don't know if I think about him because I attracted him, but now I realize, because I love the look of the cowboy. And my inspiration was between Venezuela, Colorado, and Basquiat because I love art.
Furor Moda is an online boutique based out of Miami, Florida. And basically Furor Moda came alive right after college. I moved to Miami literally the day after my last final. I had an overflowing closet, and my boyfriend at the time that I lived with, he saw that I was hiding all of his clothes to make room, and he said, Tatiana, everyone walks up to you and they love your style, the way that you just fuse things together and how you wear it. Why don't we start something?
There was actually a very specific day when it came up, and it was the day after Christmas, about 2 years ago. My wife and her mother, every year, but the day after Christmas, they would go shopping at Bal Harbour Mall, and she came home, and it was Obviously a very harrowing experience. And I asked her flat out, and I said, why don't you buy this stuff online? Everything you just bought is available. Why put yourself through this? And she said, because I have to try it on. And at that point, a light bulb went on, and I basically became obsessed with this problem.
I think the startup culture here in South Florida, it has so much potential and it's growing, and we have a lot of resources that are helping us that weren't here years before. We have the Knight Foundation, we have the Lab Miami. They host a lot of great events to bring entrepreneurs together, bring really the community together. We're all full of ideas, we all have a lot of talent, and I think it's important to have resources and to help each other and to connect the people that are doing projects. I just think it's very important for the talent to stay here. A few years ago, when I first started, I was only selling vintage clothing, and definitely vintage is not as commercial as it was before. And I had a friend, and I told him, I was like, I'm gonna go to California and New York. They love vintage there. And he's like, why would you go somewhere and be a little fish in a big pond? Stay in Miami, be a big fish in a little pond. Be part of what's coming, what's growing, the startup culture, fashion in general, and then business and how all of that combines. Stick around, do something here. And it's what I truly believe, and I tell people, stay here. Keep the talent here. The funding will come. The Knight Foundation and all of those places assist in that, and let's make Miami pretty incredible. It already is, but let's show the rest of the U.S. how really truly talented we are.
Everybody comes up with an idea, but really the first part of a business model is self-assessment. Are you the person to actually undergo or to participate in the rigors of actually having your own business?
When I had the idea to start Lost in Lusso, I really tried not to think about it, because I knew if I put too much thought into should I really start this company, I was going to talk myself out of it. So I kind of just jumped into it with 2 feet. I figured there was no harm in trying. If I did it and it didn't work out, it wasn't gonna be the end of the world. And I would rather try it and see what happens than not try it at all.
I've always wanted to have my own business, so it's never really been an option not to try something. And then it came down to, what can I do? It was actually a little bit difficult because my educational background is in business, which really teaches you how to run a whole host of things, but really doesn't teach you one specific skill. And I ran a lot of my ideas by my husband, who is my biggest critic, because I'm kind of the optimist, he's kind of the pessimist. So he, we went through several ideas up until there was one that he didn't poke as many holes into. So I was like, oh, I can actually do this.
Well, the first thing is I decided, okay, I want to do this. Well, I don't know how to sew. I don't know how to design. I haven't any knowledge in that kind. I just know I love clothes, and I have all these ideas of a clothes in my mind. So after I got the idea, I was like, okay, so how am I gonna do this? I got the sewing machine. I gathered everything I had around the house, fabrics, old clothes, and just taking apart and start sewing. Obviously, I messed up a lot at the beginning. But eventually I got a handle on it, and as soon as I start making some decent clothes, I start posting them and get them out there so people can see them and, see the people's feedback, what they think about them.
I think it's a very healthy startup culture here. There's a lot of people trying to do great things. There's a lot of very sharp entrepreneurs that I've met through this process. There's a lot of very interested technology providers and enthusiasts. There's interested investors, and little by little they're coming together. We are definitely, as a community, behind the bigger, more famous names, San Francisco, New York, even Austin and Boston. But as far as a place to start a business, South Florida, Miami in particular, is a very good place to start, and the community is very supportive. I think the single biggest thing holding back additional investment is one or more successes. Nothing unlocks capital better than success. And so I always tell people that the thing we should all be pushing for as entrepreneurs, as other investors, as engineers, anyone, we should all be pushing towards making sure that at least one or two or a handful of the companies that are here have massively successful exits, whether that's an IPO or a sale or whatever. And that, I think, will be the ultimate key to unlocking the floodgates to get capital here. Because the reality is, no matter what asset class you look at, capital follows returns. And so if you show the returns, the capital will be there.
If you don't get started, nothing happens. Direction is only important once you're already moving. So you do need to make some steps into getting started. Getting started is essential, otherwise it's just an idea.
So we originally kind of bootstrapped, basically. My sister and I both learned front-end development, so CSS, HTML, enough to make a basic website. So we made a basic website for So Love and did, kind of started off testing out the model, trying out with some people, and then raised money through Kickstarter. And on Kickstarter, we were able to raise $20,000 and kind of get the word out a little bit, get more people involved. And eventually, when we pivoted to Vividly, it was the same community of people that had supported us with So Love were able to kind of come along with us on that journey.
I started Lost in Lusso basically I went to the store, I bought a bunch of beads and started making things. I started a Facebook page and I started posting things on there. And little by little, it started selling out. I also had people start asking me for jewelry, and it just kind of grew from there organically. I didn't really have an idea of where I wanted it to go. I just knew that I liked making jewelry, and people seemed to respond well to it, so I kind of let it grow on its own.
I took a pretty analytical approach. I think, most likely based upon my background in finance and doing research. I approached the problem the same way, as first starting out doing as much research as I could for free. I self-funded for a couple of months just to validate certain aspects of the problem and certain aspects of the solution. But after that, it became pretty clear that the company needed real financing in order to get off the ground. So at that point, I approached some friends and some family who believed in the idea, believed in the concept, and of course, most importantly, believed in me that we could do it. And then at that point, we closed the financing and we were off to the races.
It's a great question, and I actually don't live in South Florida, but I'm fortunate to come here often, and obviously my sister lives here, so I feel like I have a kind of an inside view of what's going on in the tech space. It's really exciting to see so many people that are engaged and trying to make something big happen here, and I think that there's amazing energy and there's amazing opportunity, and I think it will explode eventually, but right now it's kind of just a time where all the resources need to come together. So you need politicians to get excited about it, the business community to get excited about it, and ultimately the universities, I think, is the biggest thing. So you need engineering talent. If we're talking about tech startups, the most important thing is engineering talent. And that's where I think South Florida struggles. But I hear so many people talking about making those changes. I know University of Miami is doing work on that front, FIU is doing work on that front. So I think it's an exciting time, and I think there's a lot of possibility.
You really have to have the mindset that it's not a failure, it's an opportunity to learn. So yeah, failure is there. No, you generally you can't really see it as failure. Even if you had to quit something, it's not a failure. Actually, that's a success, because knowing when to stop is an art, and takes quite a lot of intelligence, knowing when to quit something.
Yeah, the fail fast strategy is really just a way of saying you need to have validated learning and take baby steps and figure out what works and doesn't work fast. I mean, there's no answer that could possibly say, no, I don't believe in that. It would be like saying, no, I don't believe I need air to breathe. You have to be constantly trying new things and validating your assumptions, and you have to be willing to cast aside those assumptions that turn out to be false. And the quicker you can get either an idea validated or an idea invalidated, the more likely you are to succeed. So whether you believe it or not, you have no choice but to follow it because it's going to follow you.
I don't think that you can really have a business that is all set at any stage, startup stage, or when you're a multi-million-dollar corporation. There's just always something to improve. And that's, it's the downside and also the upside of having a business is that you kind of never can get bored of it because there's always something to improve.
We address the viability of our business on a daily basis, and oftentimes more than a daily basis. Every time there's a decision that needs to be made, we need to think about that within the context of the long-term vision of the business. And at this critical stage in our growth, every major decision and even many of the minor decisions we make feed into that. And so we are constantly evaluating the viability of the business with literally everything we do.
Before Lost in Lusso, I started another jewelry company. It was me and two friends and we started it. And it was basically, all we did was make bracelets. It was a very limited collection. It was a very limited product line. Within 6 months of opening the company, we couldn't handle it. It blew up bigger than we had thought. We were in about 15 stores from Boca to Coral Gables. And one of the partners was being moved to California. So the original idea was when she moved to California that we would expand the business in LA where she was gonna be and keep it going from there. Well, when she left, everything just quickly crumbled. We couldn't handle the orders that we were getting here. She was having a hard time getting started over there by herself. So we basically just decided to shut it all down. I mean, even though we had stores calling us and everything, we couldn't do it anymore. So we shut the business down, we split the inventory 3 ways, and we just went on our merry way. I still had people calling me, not stores, but like personal customers and friends of mine wanting pieces and jewelry, so I sold out my share of the inventory that we had left. I bought out my 2 partners, I took all of their inventory, I sold it all also, and my phone was still ringing. People were still calling me, asking me for more jewelry, and they were asking me for more things, like, oh, can you make a necklace, or can you make earrings? Like, do you make anything else other than the bracelets? So I saw that there was a demand, and I started making, the custom pieces that people wanted, and I realized that I should just start it on my own the way that I wanted to, and that's where Lost in Lusso came from.
It's always hard to admit that something didn't work. It's always hard to use the F word and say, oh, I failed at something. And I think that whenever you make a pivot, you're essentially saying, well, this thing failed. But at the same time, when you think about failing quickly and kind of the entire motto of the startup community right now is fail quickly, because you just learn so much, and can move fast. And so when you think about that, it actually ends up being a million failures, right? A ton of failures over and over again, but in the end, it's okay because you're getting better, you're learning what works and what doesn't. So it's not a complete failure.
Research you. That's the best advice I can give, is research you before the idea. Get really comfortable with where you are on the scale of tenacity, on the scale of connectivity, on the scale of innate or abilities.
If it's something that you really believe in and you really, really want it, you can make it happen. I'm a firm believer that if you want success as bad as you want to breathe, you can accomplish it. And there's gonna be a lot of people telling you that you can't, and that's just, I think, human nature is for them to knock you down, but if you don't think about it and you just follow your heart and do what you want to do, I think that's the best advice.
Passion. Whatever it is that you choose that you want to do, you truly, truly love, because it will let you enjoy the highs and it will get you through the lows. Passion, for sure.
Everybody, I would suggest to just try to stick with what you think is best. Get inspired. Get inspiration for everything, listen to everybody, but do whatever fits you best. Don't copy, don't steal, but get inspiration from everywhere.
You need to give it a lot of thought, obviously, and do as much preparation as you can, but don't be afraid. I think, if you have passion for something, or you think you have something that is meaningful to you, do it, because the only thing that can happen, or that will happen, is that you will learn. So, you know, whether you succeed or you fail, you will learn. And you'll learn in a big way, because taking that risk is something that will just change your life, because you'll learn not only about the industry, but you'll learn a lot about yourself.
There's a lot of advice that a new entrepreneur can use. You know, the practical advice would be to point them towards the lean startup resources, put them on the right track to do things like failing fast and understand concepts of validated learning. But I think more than anything, what most entrepreneurs need is support, emotional support in the journey, because it is a long journey. And so what I would tell them is really two things. Number one, make sure that you believe in yourself and that you have the confidence in your own abilities and in your ideas so that you can actually see it through to the end. And then perhaps more importantly is make sure there's someone in your life who believes in you more than you believe in yourself. And so in my case, it's my wife, but it doesn't have to be a wife. It can be a parent, it could be a co-founder, it can be a friend, it can be anyone. But there are points along the process and points along the journey where you're going to question assumptions about both your idea and about yourself, and you need someone there to push you through that low point. And without that, I think a lot of people fail. Excuse me, I think a lot of people fail, or they give up before they get to the destination, and they could have gotten to that destination if they had the right person behind them.